Hello everybody, welcome to The Big Show, The Showdown, the show up, the show everybody how annoying this can be. Yes, indeed. This video is going to be separated into two parts. It will start with a little observation and rant, and then it will have the guide or kind of encounters or best counters to this particular quest, talking about armor break champions, some really surprising ones, the champions I used, you know, loads of different things, and it will be broken up. There's usually like timestamp things that are below here so you can click to them. But yeah, we've got to really address some fundamental issues, some inconsistencies, and as well how it will benefit some but not benefit others. And yeah, just talk about this. Now, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time moaning about the problems of the actual creation of the champion itself. I understand they have to make it more of a skill-based interaction, but the thing I will complain about, and the thing I'll keep coming back to, is down to champion acquisition, champion viability, and as well ranking up said champions. As you know from reading here, it's got explosive personality, it's got energy adoption even, where you're going to be hit with a cold snap if you don't armor break. So therefore, does this put more of a viability on armor break champions or cold snap immunity champions? Again, if you want the guide, we'll talk about the guide. And also generating buffs for those champions, so the rich get richer, gets enjoyed. And not to mention the fact this champion is aggressive and so many other variables as well. The question obviously, is this worth it? No, not if you can't one-shot it. And even like two-shotting it, I guess it's a revive. You could just like spend a revive in order to, yes, one-shot it for 3,000. But unfortunately, we've got another, well, we got another few more to go. And as well, you know, Iron Man Infinity War, Cat Marvel movie, maybe all right-ish. But yeah, like, if you are not one of those people that can... Again, this is time sensitive. Do you want to be spending, for me, I think I've trained on this, including other champions, like 2 hours. Could I use those 2 hours to create other videos? Yes. Could I use those 2 hours to do something else productive in my life? Of course. That's the thing. If you're unable to do it at least like a one shot, or at least kind of get it down to about 20 to 10% to go, look, I've wasted a 20% revive that I got for free, then it's just not going to be that worth it to a lot of players. And as well, the specific nature of ranking up certain champions. Now, I understand Caban wanted to create a flavour of what those were experiencing, but without a full team of 5, because it is a one champion shootout situation. But, yeah, again, it goes down to the same principles that... Is this something that is more time sensitive and as well champion specific? Yes, champion specific, absolutely. Time sensitive, well, that's up to you to grind out. But as well, champion acquisition is going to be important based on roster scope. And what I mean by roster scope is the extent of champions that you have. Like, for this, it's going to be a great opportunity to use Sasquatch. Here is where this Sasquatch of mine would be if I had him. Yeah, because it's the meme. You know? And Sasquatch's stuns, staggers, ruptures, regeneration, and as well being cold snap immune is such a viable option. It also means that a secondary option can be used, and that's King Groot. Yes, I did say King Groot, and I will talk about that in a moment, but yeah, it's a fun one to kind of consider that there's only... Well, they don't say there's a limited amount of counters. It's just all about availability. Now, just based on playing style alone for me, and as well watching the cycle that Silver Surfer had, over the last 24 hours, I felt that I had to really focus on my Colossus. I'm not running Suicide Masteries, which is something that we'll talk about in a moment, how that has a bearing on the potential... I'd say fluid nature of completing this particular event and also getting a good time frame from the actual competitive side of things. But the point still remains that there's a very few amount of champions at 4-star that are able to maximize damage very quickly. They have things like armor break and cold snap. So, cold snap immunity. So it means that there's viability on the likes of Medusa, who is armor break as well, not to mention pairing her up if you're doing the synergy team with the likes of Karnak, and as well having Black Bolt and maybe some other synergies to boost said champion up. And yeah, just kind of like keep up the pressure, ramp up the damage, get those bleeds in, and other things like that. Either way, for me, it was all about, I'd say, being more aggressive, and I like the brawler nature to Colossus and as well the synergy team that goes around him. 40k to 20k hit from a non-Suicide Mastery setup was immensely fun. But again, we'll talk about that when it comes to a moment on the counters. Now I just want to talk about masteries and how they play a part in this whole kind of situation. It does mean if you have suicide masteries, you will be able to complete this a lot quicker. That fight of 1.3, nearly 1.4 million hit points will be just kind of like decimated in fewer hits than, say, myself with a standard mastery build. And what is a standard mastery build? Well, just anything that's not suicide masteries, to be honest. But the fact is, you will be able to down champions quicker, faster, more effectively. The same thing for those that have maybe a better internet connection, stronger, consistent internet. In a very rural landscape, it's difficult to get city-based connection, especially trying to benefit for anything that's above 40 megabytes for download. And in some cases, well, upload doesn't really matter. It's the download and the consistency with that connection that matters. If you're able to get better than that, you'll largely do better when it comes to playing the game, the response time, and as well connections to the server and other things as well. But those are variables that do need to be considered, and especially it does give more of a fighting edge to those in better areas, and also, like I said, with this mastery here. Okay, taking into consideration a lot of what people have said, and especially on this forum post, we may come back to it in tomorrow's Marvel Contest of Champions news. My thoughts on this is I'm disappointed by the whole creation of this. Disappointed because it's not like it was the Summoner Showdown back in 2019, where everybody literally was on the same playing field. They had limited champions to choose from, they had a limited mastery that they had to get set up for them, and as well, it was down to the skill, as opposed to this time, and sort of like champion knowledge, but this time it's a case bringing in suicide masteries. Does this give some sort of unfair advantage? And I'm sure there will be two different camps, those that use suicide masteries and go like, hey, well, you know, it's not unfair because I run this on a daily. Others will go like, right, well, if you've got it, then you're going to be like, you're going to be qualifying fastest. Again, you have to consider the damage output per second, say DPS, if there is a DPS in MCOC, the DPS or damage per minute, whatever you can, DPM, whatever, against Silver Surfer needs to be high. Can that be achieved high by grinding, by having suicide masteries? The answer will undoubtedly be yes. I will be very surprised if some of the top qualifiers are not running suicide masteries. So that will be interesting to find out. If suicide masteries have meant that players are qualifying faster, because again, then it points to something of being right. Well, if I want to win, I have got to then switch over to suicide masteries. And again, when it goes down to the finals of things, if you have suicide masteries, then if somebody has a defense tactic that undermines them, then yes, okay, suicide masteries would not be able to get you into the final. That's when the tactics really come in play. But it's this situation that makes you kind of go like, right, well, qualifying, you have to have suicide masteries. And I'm disappointed in the way that it's being created for this. Would have been great to have a beta type thing where you kind of go in, you have limited availability for champions and as well limited availability for masteries, but it's just not the case. The rewards suck for those that are not able to do this without at least one revive. So it has to be a one shot, which I just don't think is great. But at the same time, I guess it trains you a little bit for this. I don't think Kabam will bump up the rewards. And yeah, but disappointed. I want to say, like, my points to this is that I'm disappointed. Some good points, but as well, there just seems to be more kind of disappointment from this, from what I see from a competitive angle. But anyway, as I said, this video is separated in between a kind of a rant or kind of overview of what's going on, and now look at the champions I used and as well some other champions to consider. First of all, I just want to point out a website, links in the description. This is Dunez SK. And this points out a lot of champions that are armor break champions or have construct of armor break. For me, I was all about Colossus, but as well, there are so many options. It doesn't have to be about one specific champion. I may even go back and try out Warlock as a champion to kind of just try out, especially with like what could be thrown with the SP2, and as well, I believe with the immunities that that Warlock has. So that could be a really cool option, especially if you're looking for a show up and having the likes of Ultron or even, I believe, Vision in the team for the Fury buff. But yeah, there's so many kind of like really cool ones. Medusa, as we said, Medusa's a cool option doing armor break. I've heard a lot of people talk about like Sorcerer Supreme, Hulkbuster could be one of them. There are so many that do armor break that would negate that little armor break coming in. And again, so many others. Iron Man Infinity War, if you wanted to just like smash your head in with a brick wall, that would be that one as well. Yeah, a few others. There's lots and lots. I've heard about like people trying to do rotations and cycles with Thor. I've heard people talking about Annihilus being a viable option. We all know that Sasquatch is cool as a Coldsnap immune. And again, we'll talk about Coldsnap immunity in a moment. But it's all about that armor break. If you don't have a Coldsnap immunity, you need to focus on the armor break. And there could be some really cool options like Black Bolt. Maybe like a Black Bolt with a little hit monkey to begin with. Like that could be like a cool like combination there. And as well with other champions. There's a whole list of different ones, viability. I'll put the links in the description to this particular site. But yeah, there's a lot to choose from. I wouldn't go down here. But King Groot. Now, I must say, like for those that may doubt the King Grootness, Sasquatch with King Groot and Man-Thing can be a really good winning combination, especially for stacking on some great damage. Yes, in the beginning, it will be a problem and you will start receiving a lot of cold snap damage, but you will have the Fury buffs if you have the Man-Thing synergy to shrug them off. You got them shrugged off, and then what you can do is throw the SP1 as quickly as possible to get that armor break on permanent. Has to have a Fury buff on to do the permanent armor break. That is a really cool viable option. Lots of regen as well if you make mistakes, but as well you're going to have to learn to evade some of the special attacks of Silver Surfer. And that's the thing, once you got those special attacks evaded well, you will be onto a winner for smashing through the rest of that fight. I'm going to put on screen now some top tips when it comes to evading special attacks. Now I've broken down each individual fight. First of all, breaking down the SP1. With the SP1, it's all about watching the beam. You've got to evade that beam. A complete swipe back. I always recommend, or would recommend, to be in a block as much as possible. If you are a passive player, if you're an aggressive player, I would recommend to be a bit kind of like more passive, especially with the beam coming at you. It's more easier to swipe back from a block position, and then you do a further swipe. So it's one full swipe, and then one little swipe. But what you've got to do is you've got to watch Silver Surfer throw the beam. So they'll do the arm movements of swinging the beam at you. And then what he'll do is he'll do this thing where he just kind of goes up and then goes down. And if you are like unfamiliar with that one, I would recommend to just kind of like follow the motions with him. As he goes up, just kind of raise yourself up and then drop down, or kind of like crouch down as you swipe down. So up, and then as he comes down, swipe away to the left. So up and swipe to the left. It's a process of kind of understanding that kind of one full swipe, wait for a moment, one swipe left. You know, it's just a case of like, you've just got to watch the movements. The SP2, on the other hand, is a little bit more easier. Actually, the more that I ended up going up against it, the more I found it more easier. And especially, you don't watch Silver Surfer. Watch the beam at the front of the board, the surfboard. So if you swipe as that beam from there, from the kind of I'd say speed, momentum, and the kind of the forces kind of being there, the front of the board, swipe away from the front of the board. So when the board is coming towards you, watch the front part of the board. Don't watch Silver Surfer, watch the front part of the board as you swipe away. The more you do it and the more you watch that particular front of the board and not Silver Surfer, you will find this more easier to evade. So as it's coming close, swipe away, swipe away, swipe away. Focusing at the front part of the board, watching that and not watching Silver Surfer at all. For those wondering who my team was, it was this here. It was all centered around Colossus. We got Emma Frost in order to increase the power gain. We've got Unstoppable Colossus. We've got Omega Red. We've got Old Man Logan. All about strengthening the damage output side of things and helping out towards the rotations. Well, really, Emma Frost helped out towards the rotations. The way that I played the particular fight with Silver Surfer was all about pushing towards the SP2. Yes, the champion does go unblockable at some stage, and maybe it's a case that having an SP2 there isn't of value, but I just found the rotations more easier to do. Silver Surfer is going to get things like power gain, and I found that I was better evading the SP2 than I was the SP1. So what my plan was to do is to then smash through loads of L1s to kind of build him up to an SP2. He throws the SP2, and either I then tried to intercept and kind of keep up the pressure, or it's a case that I then kept my distance until he threw another kind of SP2. It is important not to hit through into things like block. It's important to watch out for things like explosive personality. And I would say that if you are applying pressure, just a case of like intercepts, swipes away, and throwing special attacks to build up to the enemy throwing special attacks. So that's really your focus, is to try and avoid special attacks more. Avoid trying to hit into the block. It did bite me a few times because I made that mistake as I was trying to keep up pressure. But that's the real thing. If you are struggling with this fight, you're going to have to focus on your special attack evading, keeping the pressure up, and knowing when to hit. You may find that this will take several goes to do. But as well, if you're finding that this is taking more than an hour or 2 hours, if you aren't doing the just 100% clear of it, then maybe it's a case of just avoiding it. For me, it's I need the gold. I need the gold badly, which is a weird thing again to say, but I need more gold in MCOC. I do incursions once to twice a week, and I'm just running out of gold, so needed to do it. Now, this particular event will showcase a lot of weird champions to use for the interaction. But I would say that it's important to keep a little bit of an open mind as to synergy creation. And it may not be about one specific champion, it may be about a grouping that you can put together. As I said, the idea of putting King Groot with Sasquatch, with Man-Thing, and as well maybe some others, Namor, could create a nice little kind of synergy group to take on the event. But also there's other options as well. Do keep an open mind about these things, and you can put together a really nice synergy. I think it will be coming to the showdown that will be more of a difficult point, and finding a champion that will cycle well will actually be Sasquatch, but then there could be some other options as well that help towards the grind, but we'll have to find out who that's going to be. Also, I've put a link down in the description to a few sites that have things like information of like who is Coldsnap immune, and as well does things like armor break. So Annihilus, yep, Coldsnap immune. Colossus is there as well. Warlock, Coldsnap immune. He does do armor break on the SP2. So there's a few options to consider. So yeah, go to the links in the description. But do bear in mind, Warlock is a class disadvantage, but it's up to you what you do with things and how you pair up. But yeah, link in the description down below on some options. There we go. That has been a video for Tuesday. I will be posting another video about Nightcrawler versus Incursions a little bit later on. Check out some recent content up there. Check out some other stuff down there. And as well, who did you use? Put it in the comment section down below. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.